Hello, good evening, good night, good afternoon, and good morning for those, depending on where you are. We are back for one more day of our month-long event, which is ending today, minus the award ceremony, which we will send a recording for unless you really, really want to join live. But I am very thrilled to say that it has been an incredible journey. We have had a beautiful time with some of the people that have come to our happy hours, our virtual happy hours, office hours, that have asked questions, that have really just taken an absolute advantage of all the talent and time and dedication and knowledge that have been presented before you. Most Qiskit Fall Fests had one focus or the other. We were really ambitious. We focused on 3 different tracks, 2 different languages, and our goal was to, to prepare you to undertake some of these big hackathons. There is a current NASA hackathons for those of you in the US that is taking place where they're opening the patents for commercialization, which I think is amazing. And there is an opportunity to win $10,000. As I mentioned before, there are other competitions where you can win a couple $1,000,000, couple $100,000. That's huge for research and development and funding your your endeavors, right? So keep an eye open on how these projects are put together. Remember Sudikkin's teachings. All of the bases that he gave you for quantum machine learning are definitely a good structure for you to follow when you are attempting some of these competitions. And so here I would like to say that we are in our final week. Tomorrow we meet in person at Primrose in Durham. And with that, we will close our Purposeful Entanglement in-person networking events. We will have another one probably next month to follow up with all of you to see how you're doing. Did you take your certifications with IBM? Did you get the badges for QML, quantum cryptography, and quantum chemistry? How did it go? We're not going to necessarily track that because that's on your own time, but we want to remind you that our quiz for the quantum certification is open and that you are able to take that up until this Sunday. I was told that some folks were on finals to please extend it, and so I have until Sunday. Also, we have our hackathons open right now for the Quantum Radar Battleship, and I also have us open for the Humanitarian Challenge. So if you have not sent that, remember that Humanitarian Challenge is a grant to support you in your research, to support you in traveling, applying for a conference, presenting a poster. It could be a hotel, it could be supporting you with some airfare. We have a max amount, but we really, really want to help you get there, to help you network, to help you find those job opportunities that you may be needing in those different environments. So that is our way to support the kind of research that's occurring, multidisciplinary and quantum. We will, as long as it is research, we will fund it. Or based on investigation. For conferences, we just ask that it is within the purview at least of STEM, but you'll be able to see all the small print on that. And so that is being sponsored by EnLuz. For the quantum battleship, we have $1,000 in Amazon computing credit, which is a pretty big amount. If you are looking to bring some research you are working on forward, that is being sponsored by QNow, and QNow is going to be giving that award. Very well, so let's get our programming started for today. It is my utmost pleasure to present Danielle Moore. She is a PhD. She's going to be talking to us about a quantum leap in clinical trials, the opportunities for AI-driven acceleration of therapeutic discovery. And so she is a creative and solution-oriented clinical operations professional with 20 plus years of research and leadership experience across academic, preclinical, and global clinical trial environments. Proven ability to manage global phase 1 through 3 trials, led across functional global team and drive operational efficiency through risk mitigation and data-driven decision-making and proactive communication. She's adept at optimizing site performance, mentoring teams, and ensuring compliance with ICH, GCP, SOPs, and regulatory requirements at a global scale. She is a breadth of knowledge and is going to help us understand where the opportunities are for us in terms of computation and technology implementation for clinical trials. We heard about drug discovery. She's going to take us to the other side. So with that, Danielle.
Hi. Hopefully take a quantum leap in clinical trials and talk about drug discovery for a little bit. So what I want to talk to you about is really comprehensive bench to bedside research in medicine and biomedical science. We'll talk about some basic bench science briefly. We'll talk about the phases of bedside clinical trials, and we'll talk about data mining opportunities. And we will talk about site identification and patient recruitment, which is a huge barrier and pain point and issue in terms of meeting timelines and moving fast enough for clinical trials. We will talk about identifying adverse events and identifying protocol deviations and larger quality issues from that. So here we go. And if I'm talking too fast, please stop me at any time. I know I talk too fast, so just at the get-go, please tell me if I am. So to start with basic science, drug discovery, we can use AI for gene sequence, looking for gene sequencing similarities, RNA structure similarities, there's a whole area of silencing and mimicking RNA structure to prevent gene expression. We can look for protein structure similarities. We can look for protein interaction similarities. You can see this beautiful picture of protein folding. The pictures are absolutely gorgeous. So just at the basic level, there's a lot of information we can look for to identify new drug targets, new therapeutic targets. Once we have a target identified, we've done some basic research, we'll move into the phases of drug development and clinical trials. But this timeline shows you,
Danielle, we still see the first slide only. I think it might be progressing in the difference.
Oh, why are we not progressing?
There you go. Oh, go back. Okay. Yep.
Okay. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Move through over here and not move through on my other monitor. Thank you. So moving back to basic benchside work, you can see the beautiful protein folding structure. We can look for similarities. Once we have a new target identified, we move into the phases of drug development and clinical trials. Make this a decade-long timeline, so to speak, moving from target finding, drug design, looking at toxicity, preliminary trial, doing the preliminary trials, all the way through post-market surveillance. But the three main phases that I have worked in since 2012, phase 1, just test the safety and dose range in a small group of people. Phase 2 focuses on the drug's effectiveness in the condition that the drug is intended to treat. And then phase 3 is the more large-scale testing for effectiveness. This is where we move into talking about double-blinded trials, so to speak. But this whole process can easily take more than a decade with overlapping quantum and AI learning, machine learning into this process. We can speed up the identification of new targets, speed up the identification of trends and efficacy, and hopefully move to drug approval more quickly than over what takes more than a decade at this point. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. That's me slowing myself down. Here I am. So there are lots of data mining opportunities once we move into clinical trials. So obviously we started talking about identifying new targets, but we can look at drugs that are already approved and look for new therapeutic interactions, new therapeutic targets separate from the drug is already used for. So that's an interesting outlet. All of the medical writing of protocols and informed consents and SOPs for companies and things need to be aligned with country regulations and international regulations. So we need to quickly, the faster we can integrate that information, the better. So that is a large opportunity there. And being ahead of the medical writing, looking for obstacles before they happen, will save a lot of updates and changes and questions and issues of quality that come up later, had things not been planned out the way that they should have been. Um, as I said in the intro, clinic sites and participants for trials are challenging to identify and can significantly prolong the timelines. So more automated review of site networks and patient networks open is a huge area of opportunity here. There are lots of clinics or sites and lots of doctors or principal investigators that can talk the talk that they have the patients available, but to be able to go through the data and identify the patients and recruit them, get them to agree and consent to the clinical trial, all of those things is a huge barrier, and definitely could use some efficacy and speeding up there. Once we have trials running, there is programming used to automate, ask questions within the data to identify safety and adverse events. So the faster, the more we can improve the efficiency that is mostly manual, and some simple programming of data mining will identify safety risks, identify adverse events and data trends more quickly, and get closer to drug approval more efficiently. So hopefully that makes sense. I can't see a chat if there's any questions. What else do I have? Coming back to site identification, the root of that is does the clinic have the patients to recruit for the trial? The issue with that is that even identifying the patient, it's a huge process to go through pre-screening, to get them to agree to consent, to get them, randomized into a larger trial, whether they may or may not get the actual study drug itself. There's a high rate of dropouts and a significant decrease in the number of completed patients. So anything that can be done to more strongly, more efficiently identify these patients and keep them, engage them in the right clinical trials, connect them to the right clinical trials for their disease, for their need, is helpful. So in terms of identifying the sites and the patients, looking at a clinic, we look at therapeutic expertise of that clinic. Have they treated this disease before? The principal investigator availability is a huge issue, or an important issue for how many trials that are juggling. How available are they for these patients, for the study team? And then identifying clinics that are in the right location, globally, locally, with the disease is not easy. And then just generally mining a specific database of a specific clinic to pull out the right patients. All of that is quite complicated and could be made much more efficient. So again, as we're running the trial, now we've identified the sites, now the patients are enrolled. What happens from that? We need to track these patients and identify if anything bad or any adverse events happen. That is, the requirements of that are going to vary for the disease and the study protocol, but generally speaking, we would look for body weight changes, blood pressure changes, cardiac changes that you would see in an echocardiogram, an electrocardiogram, any imaging depending on the disease, imaging changes or imaging abnormalities that you might see. And then a lot of times the adverse events are just discussed in a clinic note with either a nurse, study nurse, or a doctor, and somebody might not connect and put it on the actual adverse event log from that. So all of that is making sure we're pulling out anything bad that's happening with the study drug, making sure we're tracking all the safety risks. The other part as the trial is going is to make sure we keep the trial aligned with the protocol as much as possible and not deviate from the protocol as much as possible. So it's very important to identify clearly and quickly and efficiently identify protocol deviations so they don't become larger quality safety issues. So in that, what we look for, some general notes to speak of, is again, limited principal investigator availability and oversight. So is there a sub-investigator, another doctor that is delegated to the study that's actually completing the visits, signing off on the labs without the PI's initial signature, PI's review, the principal investigator's comments? That becomes a huge issue or a huge red flag. There are specific clinical research associates that travel to clinics, individual clinic sites, review the medical records. They should meet with the principal investigator at every visit with the trial with important oversight. We can skip a visit now and then if something happens with the doctor's clinic schedule. But if we're skipping multiple visits, if the PI is not available to discuss the trial, clearly not signing the papers and the records to oversee the trial, that becomes a huge red flag and a relatively sadly common red flag. Keeping track of the data entry for the sites. Some sites will have the clinic visits and will not be quick. They should enter the visit notes, the visit information within the same day, even while the patient is there. But that doesn't always happen, depending on how much the clinic is juggling, the study nurse is juggling, and any delays in data entry, specifically of the safety things, cardiac events, adverse events, generally becomes a huge issue. Late reporting of more serious adverse events, if there's hospitalization involved, that's more than 24 hours, anything life-threatening, those need to be reported same day as fast as it can happen. If anything blocks that or prevents that from happening, that is a huge issue. Missed patient or late clinic visits per the protocol schedule, making sure the patient and the clinic can adhere to having visits within a specific time frame. They shouldn't skip a visit. The visit shouldn't be too late out of window. All of that becomes an issue and we'll get the patient off schedule, off dosing. Missed visits lead to missed drug dosing, obviously. Keeping track of all of the medications that these participants are engaged in taking daily, taking regularly, making sure we have a detailed record of that, making sure it adheres to away from any list of prohibited medications that are not allowed per protocol within the individual trial. That's going to vary per trial, is very important. And just there will be a specific list of assessments that are required for each visit. If something happens, doctor gets called to clinic or patient gets an emergency call in the middle of a visit, the visit gets cut short, they can't finish a visit, we end up with missed assessments at that visit. And depending on how that can get critical, depending on what exactly was missed. Hopefully that was not too confusing, but there's a lot to track and a lot of data to mine through. How am I doing on time? Not bad. So just to summarize, from basic bench research to bedside clinical trials, we talked about basic DNA protein structure to identify new targets. We talked about the phases of bedside clinical trials. We talked about data mining, and we talked about site identification and patient recruitment. We talked about identifying adverse events and the complications there. We talked about identifying protocol deviations, making sure the study is adhering to the protocol requirements, all of those things. I'm happy to take any questions. What else do I have? Just to connect the opportunity for growth, I wanted to name two clinical research organizations that are most strongly involved in AI and machine learning and quantum. IQVIA has a dedicated AI and machine learning career page. They have multiple data science AI roles posted. Icon is another one. They have invested in a formal AI Center of Excellence. Although I didn't see any postings when I looked yesterday that were data science related. But there are these two CROs in particular are good examples that are strongly connected with AI and quantum. And that is what I have for now. That keeps us relatively on time. I am happy to take any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And here I am.
Thank you,
Hello.
Danielle. That was wonderful. I learned a lot about clinical trials. I didn't realize there was so much compliance in terms of data collection and the timing being sensitive and protocols across the different countries that you have to keep track of. And one of the reasons when we originally spoke about presenting how it's done is for those technologists on the line to consider what they see as opportunities. Without mentioning companies, could you tell me if you were using automated dashboards to track all of this, or was it mostly with Microsoft Office and different organizations? Like, I guess their compliance is use these tools, send me kind of like a spreadsheet or reports, right? What are you, what was the what was the main technology used?
So there is metadata rave is mostly where the trial data gets entered. So you see each individual visit, each patient in a folder, each site in a folder, each patient in a folder, subfolder, each visit in a subfolder, each assessment in a subfolder under that, if you can see the pyramid. Um, all of that data needs to get entered. I manually pull reports all the time, looking through adverse events and looking through visit dates and things. But there is some simple programming in the background that's pulling out some questions in an automated fashion. But it needs to be better. It should be better. It can be better. I see huge potential to make it faster and better. Um,
That's
there,
awesome. And I
there is
really
huge potential here.
appreciate, yeah, I really appreciate you going through that because for those of you that were, maybe envisioning the sites and the pyramid she's describing, that's graph data, that's dimensionality reduction. There's a lot of complexity there. There could be predictions. Uh, there could be a lot of opportunity in being able to do some acceleration and optimization within the current process, right? We're not trying to, and that's the beauty of understanding how something works that we can, if so now if there is a competition or something that shows up in terms of clinical trials, or there is an opportunity to bid with one of these organizations that she mentioned or propose a project, you are better prepared to understand what kind of technology you can apply. Similar to when Ali presented about material science, right? You understand now that, what they're looking for. And again, from the first day that we got into this program, we said it all translates into data, classically ones and zeros. And in the quantum world, into angles, coordinates, a little dot, it's somewhere in the block sphere, and that's all that we need to understand how to encode it, as Sudikan taught us quite well, actually.
For sure.
Um,
We're all here because we all love data mining.
so, are there any questions on the Discord channel? I don't think I saw any, but Danielle, if you want to just keep an eye later on the live chat in case,
I
uh,
will.
and in the Discord channel, I'll let you know if there are any questions that arise. And thank you so much for your time and expertise. We really appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for the invite. Really appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's shift over here into our second presentation. And it is going, this was something by an intern that I'm going to run a video for. She's actually one of our 2025 interns. So I want to make sure that we give her presentation chance to be broadcasted. Today we're going to It's always tricky with these things. Today we're going to take a deep dive. Okay. I'm gonna stop feeling shame when I can't share a subset of an app. I'm gonna optimize for video sharing, do the sound. Let me know with a thumbs up, team, if you can hear it.
And how quantum computing approaches optimization.
Not just as a technical process,
but as a new way of thinking about
Let me introduce her first. That would be appropriate. Okay. All right. Oh my God. Problem solving. Nope. Video's playing on its own. Okay. Rogue video, where art thou? Here you are. Okay. Sharing my screen. Okay. Zoom. Okay. Here we go. So this is our 2025 intern, Rachel Eva, and she is going to walk us through a quantum map of optimization. And she has in finals right now, so she is unable to join us to present on her own, but she sends her regrets and this wonderful video, which is going to be a great basis for the next presentation. Let's go over here and share that.
Today, we're going to take a deep dive into how quantum computing approaches optimization, not just as a technical process.
A new way of thinking about problem solving. The goal is to map out how quantum systems can explore huge spaces of possibilities, something the classical methods struggle with, and how quantum mechanics has given us tools like superposition and interference to do this more
efficiently. Yeah. So throughout this presentation, we'll break down the core concepts of the key theories, algorithms, and visualize with tools like the Bloch sphere. So let's get started. Now, the challenge. Modern problems are huge and complex. Whether we're optimizing a molecule, scheduling a delivery network, or managing financial risk, they
all share a common feature. The number of possibilities grows
exponentially with
system size. For instance, in quantum chemistry,
describing a molecule's electron configuration accurately can require computing across a space of 2 to the power n configurations, where n is the number of orbitals or electrons. Now, classical computers can't keep up with that. They try to explore these solution spaces one configuration at a time, which quickly becomes infeasible.
We can
It's often referred to as the curse of dimensionality.
Another window, it's
nearly
covered.
every domain where optimization is important, from drug design to logistics to machine learning. That's why we need a different approach, one that doesn't just scale better, but rethinks how we approach complex spaces altogether. And that's where quantum computing comes in. At the heart of these complex problems across very different domains is actually the same goal. We're trying to minimize something. In chemistry, we want the lowest energy state, the ground state of a molecule, which tells us its stable structure. In drug discovery, we're searching for molecular configurations with the strongest binding to a target protein. essentially the best match for therapeutic effect. And in finance, optimization often means finding a portfolio or strategy that minimizes cost or risk while still hitting performance goals. All of these boil down to minimizing a cost function. And what quantum systems offer is a new way to navigate the massive landscape that defines that function, a way more efficient way to seek out that global minimum. Next, we'll look at quantum systems as optimization engines. Now, think of each quantum state as a point on a map. It encodes a possible configuration of the system, like coordinates, in a high-dimensional space. The Hamiltonian, which is a central concept in quantum mechanics, assigns an energy value to each of these states. That energy is our cost function. So the ground state, the one with the lowest energy, is the solution that we're looking for. You can imagine this rugged terrain. Each quantum state is a location on the map, and the Hamiltonian defines the elevation. Our job is to find the lowest value. And this is where superposition becomes powerful, because classical computers tries one path at a time, which would take forever. But a quantum system can prepare a superposition of many states, essentially evaluating multiple directions at once. And this is the foundation of how quantum algorithms perform optimization, by mapping the search space into a physical system whose natural behavior is to move towards the lower energy. So, we just talked about the Hamiltonian as defining an energy landscape over all quantum states. But how exactly is a problem encoded into a quantum system? Now, this is where quantum state encoding comes in. In quantum optimization, we map the problem's variables into qubits, which represents a candidate solution. Then we construct a Hamiltonian. For instance, we would use the quadratic unconstrained binary optimization, QUBO, or Ising model Hamiltonian. For example, IBM's QAOA tutorial note state to rewrite the optimization problem as a Hamiltonian, for which the ground state corresponds to the solution, which minimizes the cost function. And that will be defined with H of C. So that H of C encodes the QUBO matrix Q with Zi, which will be the poly-Z operator on the qubit I. Now the quantum system is initialized in some state and then evolved under or approximated to the ground state of HC. Now that's what we're looking for, the basis state. So now, finding the optimal solution becomes the quantum task of finding the ground state, that is the lowest state. And hence, we will use quantum systems, which will explore all of them parallelly, using superposition, entanglement, interference, which would amplify the low energy solutions and suppress the higher ones. So, in essence, optimization becomes a physics problem. The system tends toward its lowest energy configuration, which by design is the optimal answer to the original problem. Now that we've seen how quantum states encode solutions and how the Hamiltonian assigns them energy, let's talk about how we actually control a quantum state. One of the best ways to visualize this is the Bloch sphere. A single qubit, when it's in its purest state, can be represented as a point on the surface of a sphere. The poles represent the classical states, the north pole being 0 and the south pole 1. And everything that is in between is a quantum superposition. Now, quantum gates, like rotations around XYZ, which is achieved with the poly-X, poly-Y, and poly-Z gate, act by rotating the qubit's state vector around the surface of the sphere. So when we apply a quantum algorithm like VQE or QAOA, we're really just rotating these qubit states step by step, trying to steer them from some starting point towards the lowest energy region. In many cases, that corresponds moving to the South Pole. VQE and QAOA each trace different trajectories across the sphere. They're each guided by their parameter updates, but they both aim to minimize the system's energy. So this geometric view, the blotch sphere, helps us understand how quantum states evolve during optimization. And in multi-qubit systems, it also sets the stage for how those qubits interact through entanglement. So now, we've visualized how we encode a quantum state, how we rotate a qubit state on the blotch sphere. We will now move on to talk about how we can use this control to solve real optimization problems. And this brings us to variational quantum algorithms, or VQAs for short. VQAs are a hybrid approach. They combine quantum circuits, which represents complex, high-dimensional states, with a classical optimizer, which does the fine-tuning. So here's the basic structure. We begin with a quantum circuit called an ansatz. It's a parameterized circuit with tunable angles, usually denoted by theta. These parameters control the quantum gates and effectively shapes the quantum state. The quantum algorithm prepares the state using this ansatz and then measures the expectation value of a Hamiltonian. Now, this expectation value that we get represents the cost of what we're trying to minimize. For example, the energy of a molecule. Now, this cost value is passed to the classical optimizer, which, for example, we use gradient descent, which updates the parameters to improve performance. And then we repeat. We prepare the state, we measure the cost, and we optimize theta. Each time the state comes closer to the optimal solution. So this iterative loop continues until the measured cost stops improving. Now, what makes VQAs especially powerful right now is that they work well on today's hardware. They only require shallow circuits, which makes them less sensitive to noise. In the next slides, we'll look at how this structure is applied in two key algorithms, VQE, which is used in quantum chemistry, and QAOA, which targets combinatorial optimization. Now let's look into one of the most well-known variational algorithms, the variational quantum eigensolver, or the VQE. The goal of VQE is to find the lowest eigenvalue, as the name would suggest, of a Hamiltonian operator. In other words, we want to approximate the ground state energy of a quantum system. Now, why is that important? Because in quantum chemistry, the ground state energy of a molecule determines its stability, reactivity, and how it interacts with other molecules. If we can accurately find this minimum energy, we can simulate molecules with far more detail than classical computers can handle. VQE works by preparing a quantum state, denoted by psi, using a parameterized circuit. Then it measures the expectation value of the Hamiltonian. That value becomes the cost that gets minimized. So again, we're running this hybrid loop. Prepare the state, measure energy, update parameters, until we converge on the state with the lowest possible energy. What makes VQE especially powerful is that it opens the door to simulating quantum systems with quantum hardware, which is exactly where classical methods begin to fail, especially as the system size grows. So in short, VQE is our go-to quantum tool for exploring the energy landscapes of molecules, and a foundational use case for quantum advantage in chemistry and material science. Now, while VQE focuses on quantum chemistry and finding ground state energies, QAOA tackles a very different category, combinatorial optimization, the kind of problems that are NP hard and notoriously difficult for classical computers to solve efficiently. QAOA, short for Quantum Approximate Optimization Algorithm, is designed to solve problems like max cut, the traveling salesman problem, or complex scheduling and resource allocation tasks. These problems have massive solution states, and exact solutions are often intraceable. So instead, QAOA aims for high-quality approximations guided by quantum logic. At its core, QAOA builds a circuit that alternates between two types of operations. One is based on the cost Hamiltonian. It encodes the problem's objective function and adds a phase that reflects the cost of each solution. The other is a mixer Hamiltonian. It stirs the solution space, helping us explore different configurations. Now, these operations are repeated in layers, and each layer is controlled by two parameters: gamma, which tunes the cost component, and beta, which adjusts the mixing. The algorithm then runs a classical optimization loop to find the best values of gamma and beta, those that produce quantum states with the highest expectation value of the cost function. So, in essence, QAOA doesn't give you the exact answer, but it gives you a very good one, very efficiently. And for many real-world applications, from logistics to portfolio optimization, that's exactly what we need. The quantum compass concept. Now, putting everything that we've seen in the form of an analogy. Imagine you had a compass, but it doesn't point north. Instead, it points to the optimal solution. And we use the algorithms that we've seen to find this optimal solution. And now we explore all these different paths to find our solution. But this would take forever classically. And hence we move forward with a hybrid approach using quantum to speed up the process. So now we find the lowest energy because the lowest energy tends to give us the best possible solution. And we do so by using something that we've seen as the Hilbert space. Now, the Hilbert space is a mathematical space used to represent all possible solutions a quantum system can be in. Now, as the quantum needle spins, it is going to tend to the global minima. Now, interference plays a key role here. It boosts the amplitude of better paths and cancels out the one that leads nowhere. So you're not exploring blindly. You're tuning into the direction that leads you down. But we can't just let the quantum needle run. We have to pause to measure at regular intervals, checking where the compass is pointing. This feedback is passed to a classical optimizer, which adjusts the settings, and we go back to search again. Iteration by iteration, the compass realigns. Eventually, the needle settles, pointing straight to the hidden valley, where the solution lies. And that is the power of quantum optimization. Not by walking every path, but by aligning a compass in a space where all paths exist at once, following it to the lowest. Now that we've seen how the quantum compass guides us to our solution, let's take a moment to see what this looks like in the real world. VQE is more than a theoretical exercise. It's already being tested across some of the most important scientific fields. In quantum chemistry, VQE helps map out the energy landscapes of simple molecules like hydrogen or lithium hydride. It captures quantum effects like electron correlation, which are missed by classical approximations like Hartree-Fock. In material science, it can predict things like band gaps, defect stability, or lattice energetics, which are critical for designing semiconductors, batteries, and superconducting materials. And in drug discovery, VQE can model molecular binding and folding energies, helping us to simulate how a drug candidate might behave before it's ever synthesized. This can drastically reduce the time and cost of pharmaceutical research. While VQE focuses on physical systems like molecules and materials, QAOA takes aim at a different kind of challenge. Like we've seen, complex optimization problems in areas like finance. One of the most powerful examples is portfolio optimization. The goal here is to balance a set of assets in a way that maximizes return while minimizing risk under real-world constraints. The QAOA approaches this by encoding the cost function into a Hamiltonian and then searching for low-cost bit strings that correspond to favorable portfolio allocations. It can also enhance risk models, especially when correlations between assets are best captured as graphs. These problems often resemble the max-cut optimization task, where QAOA naturally excels. And the big advantage? QAOA scales well with hundreds of variables, far beyond what brute force classical approaches can handle in reasonable time. So whether it's quantum chemistry or financial modeling, these algorithms let us tackle real-world complexity at a scale that will otherwise be out of reach. Now that we've looked at how we apply these concepts practically, let's look at some of IBM's use cases. Now, IBM's quantum systems are already supporting real-world R&D, particularly in drug discovery. For example, AstraZeneca has partnered with IBM to use hybrid VQA techniques that accelerate small molecule design. This has led to 2 to 10 times faster binding energy predictions, an enormous boost in early-stage pharmaceutical screening. In quantum chemistry, IBM's high-level VQE, high VQE, integrated into Qiskit functions, allows researchers to simulate the behavior of complex molecules with more accuracy than classical models, especially for tasks like electron correlation and molecular conformations. And in material science, IBM is using VQE to simulate metal organic frameworks, or MOFs, for applications like DAGD air capture. These simulations help optimize how these materials absorb gas, which is critical for climate-focused technologies. These are not just theoretical results, these are live, hybrid, quantum classical pipelines running on IBM's QPs today. Just as we looked at how VQA is pushing boundaries in chemistry, QAOA is also driving breakthroughs in finance and logistics. In finance, HSBC and IBM collaborated to use QAOA for portfolio optimization. By translating financial risk models into quantum circuits, they achieved a staggering 2,500-fold speedup on select tasks. That's quantum acceleration not years from now, but happening already. In supply chain, IBM is applying QAOA to complex logistical problems. These systems optimize global routing networks, ensuring goods move faster and more efficiently with fewer delays. Think of it as quantum-enhanced traffic control for international commerce. These cases illustrate the growing momentum behind hybrid quantum algorithms, not just in theory, but in high-impact real-world sectors. So far, we've seen how hybrid quantum algorithms like VQE and QAOA are applied across domains, from drug discovery to finance. But all these successes share a common core engine, one crucial design decision that can make or break performance: the ansatz. At the heart of every variational quantum algorithm lies the ansatz, a parameterized quantum circuit that guesses what the optimal solution might look like. In chemistry, that's often a UCCSD ansatz, tailored for molecular electrons. In QAOA, we use layered mixers built for combinatorial structures. But designing a good ansatz isn't trivial. If the circuit is too rigid, it won't reach the best solution. Too flexible, and you risk overfitting or getting stuck in barren plateaus, where optimization stalls completely. To compare ansatz strategies across fields, researchers look at 3 key features. 1, expressivity. 2, trainability. And 3, variance. Now, expressivity. Can the circuit represent a wide variety of possible solutions? Now, molecular encodings demand high expressivity. Graph problems need structure-adaptive ansatz. Trainability. Can we efficiently tune the parameters without overwhelming quantum resources? And variance. From UCCSD for chemistry to max-cut style QAOA setups, they all aim to minimize the expectation value of the Hamiltonian. Now, choosing or engineering The right ansatz is what lets quantum algorithms adapt to the shape of the problem. And it's one of the most active areas of research in quantum optimization today. Now, we finally traced the arc of quantum optimization, starting from complex problems that stump classical tools and following how quantum systems reframe them as energy landscapes, from VQA shaping how we simulate chemistry to QAOA tackling problems in finance and logistics, and with IBM's real-world deployments pushing these algorithms into production. It's no longer theoretical, it's happening. But the real elegance? It's in the hybrid. Quantum circuits explore a vast search space, and classical routines guide the tuning. Together, they don't guess, they converge. And that's the beauty. Turning an intraceable search into directed progress. Not revolution overnight, but a shift in how we solve what used to be unsolvable.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rachel, for that hard work and presentation. We tasked her to find a way to bring together what we were doing. And we have a different presentation for security that will be made available on what the current state actionable items are for PQC and QKD. What does the European Union say? What does the NIST say? What is in common? And I'm going to do that as an addition to this because that intern unfortunately had we had two people who had different work emergencies, but I am going to present who they are and then make additions to their presentation. For the moment, I'm going to see if our professor is available. All right, so while we do a quick break, just to kind of separate it, I want to share something that I'm very proud of. We have some incredible news, and these are not the final numbers, but did you know that our little event here has had over 400 participants? And not only that, it has sold out in several countries. So I'm going to share some things with you. And I do this because I really want to motivate you to maybe, just maybe, be a host next year. Think about applying for Qiskit Advocate next year. I think the applications are still open, so if you finish your foundations or your basics and you get some of the certifications here, you could do it too. And so let me show you some things. We've had over 400 participants. I started counting things and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, we set out to maybe have half of that. And I am very humbled and very grateful to all of you for allowing us the privilege of your time, your attention. And really, it is just beautiful to see that when we set out to do this, this is where everyone is collaborating for. Multidisciplinary, international collaboration. We have people from Costa Rica, Argentina, Colombia. We have people in New Delhi. We have people in Ropar in Punjab. We have myself and Ali in North Carolina. And I could just tell you that between the language ability of all of the participants, their organizers, their diverse breadth of knowledge, it there are people here who have both Middle Eastern, Hispanic, Caribbean descent. We have people with, it's just such an international and beautiful blend that I want to share this because in the geopolitical climate that we are, I don't want you to ever lose sight of the strength that collaboration brings. So don't let fear come your way. Or it could visit. Like we say in Spanish, let it come over for a cafecito and that it's gotta go. Because it's valid, right? But the strength and diversity and cross-disciplinary knowledge, I cannot tell you how beautiful it is. We were going to have one event in Costa Rica, but instead we had 3 days in person, one virtual activity, and it sold out. Started with 30 spots for each one, and then ended up with 97 people registered. And then I haven't even counted the virtual one. My point is, we were just so humbled and grateful for the hunger of knowledge on quantum. And I invite you to really network because we have incredible talent that is very motivated to do research, to share with you, to look into some of the opportunities that you have. They are going for that prize. I'm telling you because I've received several really good submissions on the hackathon. And so I would love to have a couple of people from different continents. Why not? So make sure that you bring your A game for those hackathons. And we did have a mini battleship, and we had a couple of winners in Costa Rica. For those of you who are not familiar with the country, there's the capital and then the remote areas, and people were bussed out from remote areas like Limon on like some top students. And there's a big orchestration, and Fabian, who's on the line, was presenting, organizing. He was our top intern and mentor last year. He was a presenter this year. He's doing research. He's going for things, and I think that the beauty of creating things out of nothing really, and be able to bring your most valuable resource, which is your time, to have something happen, like Sudikin creating a quantum and AI club and IIT Ropar and everything that had to happen for that to take place, and the fact that they had a pretty full auditorium there as well. They got books for quantum machine learning unlocked, and they're looking for researchers across different parts also to collaborate with. And so reach out, network, reach out in LinkedIn. Our Discord server is going to remain active so we can continue sharing opportunities through that. All right, so I'm going to remind everyone to select their language. So make sure that you go down into the closed captionings, that you select your language, and that you are able to say closed captions, translate, and that you start, reading it in English. This professor definitely, he's multilingual and all, but he is presenting to his confidential QUBO solver. His name is Mariano Caruso, and he is a professor at Fidesol. He's part of this quorum organization of different countries and companies, and and he's also a co-founder of QNow, one of our sponsors. So I'd like to introduce you to quantum computing researcher with a PhD from University of Granada, UGR, specializing in the variational formulation of stochastic processes. As coordinator of quantum unit at Fidesol and professor in the Masters of Quantum Computing program at UNID, he combines quantum theories with machine learning. He provides consultancy to companies developing products or services based on cutting-edge research in quantum computing. He actively promotes collaboration between academia and industry, standing out at the intersection of computational science and quantum research. His work encompasses machine learning and secure methodologies, leveraging both classical and quantum techniques. So I'm going to...
Bueno, muy buenas a todos, ¿qué tal? Muchísimas gracias a la organización del Qiskit Fall Fest 2025, en este año tan particular. Bien, vamos a comenzar con un tema ahora enseguida. Me presento primeramente, mi nombre es Mariano, Voy a intentar hablar despacio para que la traducción se pueda hacer sin problema, en simultáneo. Bueno, eso, que empiezo directamente con el título de la presentación de hoy, que es justamente esto, ¿no? Em, Vamos a tratar sobre aspectos de confidencialidad en la resolución de problemas, digamos, de optimización en este caso, que involucran computación cuántica, por supuesto, para que tenga sentido en este espacio, pero en realidad este método del que vamos a hablar incluso puede ser aplicado, vamos a verlo, eh, independientemente de si el sistema que resuelve este problema de optimización es clásico, cuántico, híbrido, ¿sí? Es muy importante tratar estos temas de seguridad en la resolución del problema de optimización, porque bueno, es un tema que debería preocupar, no solamente por la computación cuántica en sí, sino incluso por la manera en la que se trabaja actualmente con la computación clásica. Uno libremente muchas veces envía datos ahí por internet, datos sensibles. eh, a veces son datos personales y uno es el que puede ser perjudicado o un tercero cercano, pero muchas veces son datos que puede involucrar investigación, datos de pacientes, datos económicos, datos, depende del caso en particular que vamos a tratar. Y como justamente los problemas QUBO, vamos a ver enseguida, son problemas bastante transversales que aparecen en muchas áreas de la investigación académica, de la industria también, es importante atacar justamente este tipo de problemas que son muy ampliamente utilizados, aparecen en muchos campos, y hacerlo de manera segura, como vamos a ir viendo. El trabajo, como podemos ver, es una interacción de muchas partes, en el sentido no solamente por los autores que estamos acá, sino porque involucra también a la academia, a la industria, y en particular, bueno, este es un trabajo que digamos, surge, después vamos a contar al final sobre, en el contexto de un proyecto concreto, y da lugar justamente a la interacción de estas partes. Es interesante hoy trabajar justamente de manera mancomunada con la academia y con la industria, o sea, saber lo último, si se quiere, de investigación básica que la industria, perdón, que la academia desarrolla, y lo último también que puede estar necesitando la industria para implementar, ¿no? Bien, vamos a arrancar directamente. Entonces, primero empezamos contando qué es un problema cubo. ¿Sí? Un problema cubo, ahí tienen la definición matemática como tal, un poco de la descripción de la sigla o del acrónimo. La Q es de cuadrática, ¿sí? Estamos hablando de un problema de optimización, ahí en la O. Un problema que es cuadrático, o sea, la función objetivo es una función cuadrática en la variable, en las variables x, ¿sí? En este vector. Es un vector, este vector tipo binario, es un vector de n componentes, ¿sí? Como se puede ver por acá. Y de n componentes, donde cada componente es o bien 0 o bien 1, un vector que a veces se suele llamar binario o booleano, depende del libro de texto que uno use. Y es un problema que pretende, digamos, optimizar, o sea, minimizar o maximizar una función objetivo em, como es, y sin restricciones adicionales. En principio, solo se pretende maximizar o minimizar la función f sin agregar otra restricción más. Por eso la U de sin restricciones, ¿sí? Bien, entonces, ¿qué ocurre? Que esta función, digamos, el objeto de la función, perdón, el objeto del problema cubo es este tipo de funciones, como decíamos, estamos omitiendo acá una constante aditiva que puede agregarse a esta función, que puede venir propiamente del problema que uno esté tratando, pero a fines prácticos no va a influir en el valor, en el x, que hace mínima o máxima la función. O sea, todos sabemos que una función, digamos, a fines de minimizarse o maximizarse, o sea, de encontrar el x, digamos, que hace ese trabajo, o los X, pues pueden ser varios que uno encuentre, en tal caso, eh, esos igualmente van a ser los mismos independientemente de si la función es la que estamos viendo en pantalla o una función que tiene una constante aditiva, en general una constante puede ser positiva, negativa, etc. ¿Sí? Bien, ¿qué más? Vemos acá también que estos problemas son en general NP-hard, ¿sí? En general. Con lo cual se presenta un problema que nos va a requerir en general de cómputo externo, puede ser el caso, ¿está bien? Ahora lo vamos a comentar el contexto. Y también es importante recalcar que la información, digamos, los parámetros que están definiendo la función son justamente estos elementos de matriz Q sub i j y p sub i, que aprovechando la propiedad de que las variables, estas binarias, como digo, su cuadrado es igual a sí misma, o sea, x sub i al cuadrado es igual a x sub i, podemos aprovechar para reescribir este término, que es el término lineal, como dentro de un término cuadrático de tipo diagonal. Es decir, podemos reescribir a esta función, digamos que es el objeto del problema cubo, de manera tal que una única matriz Q, esta Q distinta, esta nomenclatura, definida como la original, o esta, mejor dicho, la parte cuadrática propiamente dicha, más la matriz que surge de tomar, o sea, la matriz construida, matriz diagonal construida con el vector este P sub i, estas componentes P sub i, dispuestas en la diagonal principal de una matriz. ¿Sí? Esto es un ejercicio simple de hacer, se puede demostrar rápidamente que esta matriz Q nueva recoge al final de cuentas toda la información de la función f, y de alguna manera podemos decir que si vos me das la matriz Q como tal, caracterizás directamente a la función objetivo o al problema de optimización por lo menos, ¿sí? Por esta constante aditiva que no estamos explícitamente colocando acá. Perfecto. Entonces, decíamos que estos problemas cubo, como tal, son ubicuos, aparecen muchísimas, en una multitud de áreas y subáreas, como podemos ver acá. ¿Sí? Ahí esto lo pueden buscar justamente, van a encontrar muchísima información respecto de problemas cubo asociados a alguna de estas categorías que estamos comentando por acá. Lo que invito con esto es un poco a ver, pensando sobre todo en las subáreas, es una clasificación particular, caprichosa, se puede hacer otra, pero a lo que apunto con esto es que puedan ver acá en estas subáreas, piensen ustedes en los datos que están dando vueltas por detrás, ¿sí? Digamos, en el caso de un problema de física, de encontrar el estado, digamos, de más baja energía, el estado base, puede no ser grave, digamos, el compartir datos como tal, quizá, ¿no? Pero en un problema de economía, en un problema de finanzas, en un problema de medicina, en el cual puede haber datos de pacientes y demás, en un problema de logística, puede haber datos que, o bien, no sea recomendable justamente, o más que recomendable, o que no se pueda eh, eh, hacer público, ¿sí? O que sea un riesgo si se hace público, o que no se quiera hacerse público porque justamente por ahí es poner, digamos, datos a la competencia en este caso. ¿Sí? En los casos de, no sé, finanzas, economía y demás, puede ser problemático el compartirlos. En el caso de medicina y otros datos, perdón, otro tipo de datos en otro tipo de problemas, no solamente que no es recomendable porque la competencia, sino porque estamos hablando de datos de personas. ¿Sí? Entonces, el motivo de exponer o no datos, o de que puedan quedar expuestos datos, puede cambiar según el tipo de problema, pero en cualquier caso, en todos estos problemas, o en todas estas subáreas, mejor dicho, hay algún tipo de problemática en el exponer la información del problema de optimización. Esa información, repito, está contenida en la matriz Q. ¿Mm? Eh, Me refiero a información eh, que puede ser incluso, estrictamente hablando, los datos como tal. Si por ejemplo es un problema de Machine Learning, el que estamos tratando, y lo podemos resolver como un problema cubo, que hay bastante bibliografía al respecto, explícitamente estaríamos exponiendo los datos como tal. ¿Sí? Se podría hacer algún tipo de ingeniería inversa y obtener información bastante comprometida de esos datos como tal. Bien, entonces, ¿qué ocurre? Si el problema como tal, el problema cubo, vamos a seguir esta metáfora de utilizar un cubo de Rubik como para ayudarnos en la idea mental de lo que es resolver un problema cubo, piénsenlo como resolver un problema de un cubo de Rubik, o sea, colocar los colores como se indica. Si lo pudiera, si pudiera ser resuelto de manera local, como dice acá abajo, entonces, bueno, es simple, tengo un ordenador, una computadora, algo local, y tengo la suficiente capacidad para poder resolverlo de manera local y sin problema obtener mi solución, esperando un tiempo razonable, etc. Acá no hay ningún problema. Pero ¿qué ocurre cuando por ahí la cantidad o sea, básicamente el tamaño de esa matriz Q que estamos tratando, em, es lo suficientemente grande como para que localmente ya no pueda resolverlo el problema como tal y requiera de cómputo más pesado, más fuerte, etcétera, eh, externo a mis capacidades como usuario. Entonces, el problema como tal se enviaría a un solver, a un resolutor, digamos, a una herramienta que va a resolver esto en la nube, piénsenlo ustedes. Entonces, en este envío del problema como tal, está justamente una posible exposición de los datos. Ahora vamos a ver de qué cosas, explícitamente, aunque ya se pueden hacer una idea de lo que tratamos. Y el problema es resuelto externamente, devuelve una solución y perfecto, tenemos el cubo resuelto en nuestra localidad en casa. Entonces, claro, la contratación o el recurso, porque puede ser un dispositivo, digamos, el solver este puede ser algo que esté ubicado en tu universidad, en tu empresa, o algo que contratás externamente, ¿está bien? Puede ser clásico o cuántico. Va a requerir justamente este esquema. Vamos a volver un poquito a la parte más formal para entender acá que el problema original que estamos queriendo resolver es encontrar un X estrella, un X que en general va a ser el mínimo de la función, se puede plantear con el máximo, da igual, para fines prácticos es para ilustrar un poco el problema. Queremos minimizar una función, entonces lo que hacemos es localmente, y vamos a requerir de un solver externo, enviamos la matriz Q, que es la que caracteriza la función objetivo, como dijimos antes, y este solver, que es especialista, digamos, en resolver problemas cubo como tal, va a devolvernos el X estrella. En el mejor de los casos, eh, encontrará el mejor, quizás se atasque en algún mínimo global, perdón, local, y no encuentre nuestra o la mejor solución, pero bueno, eso será cuestión de reclamar al solver que uno contrata o que uno usa. Pero esencialmente el problema se resume en esta diapositiva de lo que sería resolver de manera externa, ¿no? Utilizando un solver externo. De vuelta, insisto, el solver como tal puede ser clásico o cuántico. La tecnología no estamos acá comentando nada sobre la naturaleza del hardware que se esté utilizando. Lo que sí vemos que a la ida va una matriz Q y a la vuelta vuelve un vector X asterisco, X estrella. ¿Sí? Bien, como dijimos, cuando sale el vector Q, perdón, cuando sale la matriz Q, perdón, bueno, matriz vector a fines de la informática se suelen tratar como listas muchas veces, pero bueno, la matriz Q, una vez que se envía por la red, pensémoslo como un servicio en la nube, em, justamente queda expuesta, queda posible, queda abierto la posibilidad a que se pueda copiar esa información. ¿Sí? Entonces, necesitamos justamente proteger la información que está contenida en Q, o a la propia Q, como tal. ¿Sí? Bien, ¿qué proponemos? Como del otro lado habíamos visto que hay un solver, pero es un solver que está esperando a recibir un problema cubo, lo que queremos hacer es justamente, mediante alguna transformación, T en este caso, pasar una transformación que vincule dos espacios Y y X, que son, X es el dominio de la función objetivo, digamos, del problema cubo, construir una función G, ¿sí? Y esta transformación lo que hace es mapear de un dominio a otro, de manera que podemos, a partir de la F, definir una función G, ¿sí? En otras variables, de manera que el problema de optimización, ahora volvemos al problema de optimización como tal, puede ser el mínimo o el máximo, de vuelta, insisto, en el contexto de la F, se relacione con este otro problema de optimización, en el contexto de G, a través de esta transformación T. O sea, en definitiva estamos tratando con problemas homólogos, problemas similares. Los dos, de hecho, son problemas de cubo, eso es lo que pretendemos hacer. Es decir, la transformación T va a inducir una operación que la vamos a llamar ahora como una operación de cifrado, ¿sí? Que toma el problema cubo original y lo transforma en otro problema cubo prima, ¿sí? Si se quiere, del lado azul, el lado de origen, y el lado rojo, el lado que voy a resolver mediante vuelvo a poner la redundancia, este solver externo, ¿sí? Bien, bueno, entonces en este contexto, usando esta transformación que conseguimos, que idealmente tenemos pensada como que existe y después habrá que buscar cuál será, tendremos una, digamos, tarea original, que va a ser la misma de antes, la azul, que mediante la operación de cifrado que comentamos recién, va a transformar la matriz Q original en una Q'. Esa es la que se va a enviar al solver. El solver va a tratar con una función F', todo en el dominio prima me refiero al dominio, el dominio cifrado, el lado derecho. Va a resolver este problema de optimización, ¿sí? En principio no va a poder inferir información de Q, de la original, o sea, de Q' no se puede inferir información de la original. Eso lo tiene que hacer la transformación T, tiene que ser capaz de hacer eso. Y el solver va a devolver el mínimo, en este caso, en el dominio cifrado, el X' estrella, ¿sí? Y en local voy a descifrar usando la transformación T que hacía este trabajito para la cual la definimos, ¿sí? Entonces, este es el esquema general. Muy sencillo. La ventaja que tiene es que justamente Q', en este caso, va a ser una transformación ahora. Perdón, decía que la transformación de encriptación, de cifrado, mejor dicho, que está acá, va a hacer que la matriz Q', justamente como dije antes, no se va a poder inferir información de la original. Esta es la que se va a enviar al solver y en local se cifra y en local se descifra. Y la transformación de cifrado, como tal, o sea, el mapeo que habíamos pensado, este mapeo T, ¿sí? va a ser tal que va a inducir, de hecho, la propia clave, ahora vamos a comentar brevemente, asociada a esa transformación, ¿sí? Entonces, digamos, en el área de la criptografía hay esencialmente dos como propiedades, dos ingredientes, si se quiere, que un cifrado podría tener. A veces en el cifrado como tal se pueden reconocer de manera individual, a veces están, digamos, como embarañadas, o sea, básicamente utilizadas de manera mezclada, como que no se pueden individualizar. En este caso quería ser explícito y comentar que, por ejemplo, el problema original que tenemos para resolver, que es este cubo de Rubik, digamos así, yo puedo utilizar este tipo de matrices que son del grupo de permutaciones y transformar el problema original en otro problema cubo. Esto es lo que quiero simbolizar con esta metáfora gráfica. Es como si permutar ese cubo, es como si, no sé, le dieran un par de vueltas, lo mareara un poco al cubo como tal, ¿sí? Y de esa manera construir Q'. ¿Está bien? Y otra manera de hacerlo es mediante la confusión, justamente es afectar, en este caso, así metafóricamente hablando, a la gama de colores del cubo como tal y construir Q' de esa manera. O sea, en los dos casos construye una matriz Q', o sea, construye un problema cubo distinto en el dominio cifrado, que es el que voy a enviar al solver como tal, ¿sí? Eh, entonces, justamente, ¿qué ocurre? Que si utilizo el ingrediente 1, el ingrediente de difusión, el esquema va a ser este, ¿no? En definitiva, hago una operación de difusión, ese problema cubo es el que envío al solver, es resuelto, vuelve, digamos, como tal resuelto y aplico la transformación correspondiente, en este caso la inversa, digamos, que apliqué al principio, y podré obtener el problema, o sea, la solución de mi problema cubo original, ¿sí? En el dominio que corresponde, o sea, los valores del X estrella y no los de X' estrella, ¿sí? En el caso de usar el ingrediente 2, es similar, simplemente que utilizaré la transformación de confusión, en este caso, usando este vector que habíamos, digamos, comentado antes en la diapositiva anterior, o en la anterior a esa, mejor dicho, que era de n componentes también binarias, de tipo 0, 0, 1, ¿sí? Bien, formalmente se resume en esto. Si uso el ingrediente 1, ¿sí? La transformación que no estoy explicitando acá de cifrado va a venir dada por va a venir inducida por una matriz del grupo de permutaciones que hace las veces de clave y esa matriz Q' se envía al solver y cuando el solver devuelve digamos, en este caso un mínimo de la función f', podría, digamos, descifrar utilizando esa matriz de clave en local. Las operaciones, ahora vamos a ver en cuanto a la complejidad computacional y demás, de estas operaciones como tal. En el caso digamos, del ingrediente 2, que lo podemos individualizar, como dije, en 1 y 2, no siempre se puede hacer esto, insisto, em, cifraría la matriz Q utilizando un vector de n componentes binario, ¿sí? Igual que, digamos, similar al X, ¿sí? Del dominio de F, y con él obtener una matriz Q', que es la que envía el solver y toda la misma cuestión que antes. El solver va a darme una solución en este dominio cifrado y en local podré descifrar utilizando esta operación, ¿sí? Vean que las operaciones de descifrado son operaciones realmente muy poco costosas, ¿sí? O sea, son operaciones que se pueden hacer justamente muy rápido. En cualquier caso, en los dos casos, las claves, todas las claves, tanto la matriz del grupo de permutaciones como el vector este que estoy usando acá, son efímeras, es decir, son claves de un solo uso o claves de sesión. Claves que el usuario, cada vez que quiera resolver un problema cubo como tal, tendrá que generarlas localmente, ¿sí? No revelar, no hace falta nada, no hay que compartir claves, no es un problema de comunicación entre el solver y el usuario. El usuario usa sus claves, no las comparte. ¿Cómo las genera? Si las genera de manera segura o no, es una cuestión del usuario. Pero una vez que las genera, las claves las tiene que mantener ahí en memoria un ratito más para descifrar después cuando el solver devuelva la solución en el dominio cifrado, ¿sí? Bien. Entonces, puedo aplicar justamente los dos métodos, este es el esquema simplemente para unificar lo que estaba contando antes, los puedo aplicar de manera conjunta, ambos dos métodos, o sea, los dos ingredientes como tal, los puedo usar y como buena receta hacer una receta mejor, en este caso más segura, ¿sí? Eh, y acá un poco para resumir, eh, ¿cuál es el costo computacional? Esto es está un poco pensado para responder a la pregunta de, bueno, ¿cuánto costaría eh, en tiempo, digamos, ¿no? Resolver, o mejor dicho, aplicar el cifrado y el descifrado? Es decir, le agrega más carga computacional, porque ya habíamos dicho que los problemas cubos son en general NP, comentamos antes. Entonces, es importante saber si el cifrado no va a recargar justamente de complejidad al problema original, haciéndolo, nada, más lento todo el proceso. Bueno, la verdad es que no, son costos asumibles en todos los casos, lo pueden ver. Lo que sí quiero representar es que en el caso de esta es la receta, ¿no? Usando un ingrediente, o sea, usando permutaciones, usando claves como las que mostramos antes de vectores K de tipo 0,1 de n componentes. En el caso de usar solo esos dos ingredientes, estos son los costos por cifrar y por descifrar. Y si utilizara la receta de, por ejemplo, utilizar primero permutación y después, o sea, de manera secuencial, y después usar la otra variante, que es la variante de usar el vector binario K, tendré estos costos. Y si los utilizara de manera iterativa, o sea, secuencial e iterativa, o sea, usar varias veces permutación y una clave con un vector binario, eh, los costos incluso no escalarían tremendamente, ni mucho menos, ¿sí? Están muy por debajo de lo que podría ser generalmente el costo de resolver un problema cubo sin haberlo cifrado ni nada. Hay que decir también, no lo estoy explicitando en las diapositivas, pero el tamaño de la matriz Q' eh, está pensado para que sea el mismo tamaño que la matriz original, ¿sí? Y eso es importante porque no le agrega tampoco más carga computacional al problema cubo prima, el problema que envío al solver, no es de una carga, perdón, mejor dicho, en principio no carga de manera extra al solver el haber cifrado. No solamente porque la propia operación, como estamos mostrando acá, es una operación de un cierto costo bastante liviano, asumible, sino porque el tamaño de la matriz Q', que va a ser el que va a definir un poco la carga del problema NP, que va a resolver en general el solver, es el mismo tamaño que el de la matriz original, ¿sí? Es importante también destacar eso. Bien, como conclusiones, simplemente, vimos que, o comentamos que estos problemas cubo, ¿sí? Se pueden resolver de manera clásica. Voy a nombrar acá rápidamente. Hay algoritmos de tipo, por ejemplo, no sé, annealing, el simulated annealing. Son algoritmos, el paper original si mal no tengo claro, es del año 84. Son algoritmos estándar que permiten resolver un problema QUBO como tal. Hay algoritmos en cuántica también para hacer esto, muchísimos, pero en cualquier caso los dos enfoques son válidos para resolver problemas QUBO como tal. Es decir, este enfoque de cifrar y de descifrar en local se puede aplicar para problemas QUBO, independientemente de que si son atacados con métodos clásicos o cuánticos, ¿no? Vimos que había una vulnerabilidad, una posible exposición de los datos, si el problema QUBO, digamos, tuviera codificadas en su matriz Q datos como tal. Y por otro lado, encontramos una manera de hacer este procedimiento seguro cuando se requiera de cómputo externo, ¿sí? A lo que es el usuario local. Las claves en todos los casos son efímeras, se usan en cada sesión. Como dijimos recién, el problema, digamos, a resolver digamos, el cómputo externo es del mismo tamaño en la matriz Q' es del mismo tamaño que en la matriz original. También se puede implementar todo esto en Python, es muy simple. Y es una solución que es agnóstica, o es independiente, mejor dicho, porque agnóstica es una palabra por ahí más fuerte, pero es independiente de la naturaleza del hardware utilizado. Es decir, este método, como tal, pretende preparar un problema QUBO previo a la codificación que uno quiera hacer para resolverlo. Es decir, si va a utilizar hardware clásico o cuántico, o híbrido, lo que fuere, es justamente independiente de todo esto. Bien. También hay que decir, no está escrito acá, pero la idea central de pensar en un problema de optimización y construir un problema homólogo es, de hecho, está trabajando, digamos, el tema como tal, desde nuestro lado, el poder aplicarlo a otras áreas, a otros problemas que no sean ni siquiera QUBO, ¿sí? Y que sean, por ejemplo, muy utilizados en Machine Learning. Por ejemplo, cuando uno quiere, de vuelta, insisto, entrenar un modelo, un clasificador, no utilizando digamos, un problema QUBO como forma de atacar ese problema, sino otras, por ahí incluso más eficientes en otros casos. De la misma manera se puede utilizar un esquema similar para cifrar y para obtener un problema homólogo, construido no con una carga computacional excesiva, como similar a lo que estamos charlando acá, en estos costos asumibles, de manera que el problema sea similar al que esperaría un solver resolver como tal, incluso el mismo tamaño, en cuanto al tamaño de las matrices, en este caso involucradas, y de esa manera poder también aplicarlo como tal, independientemente del hardware utilizado. O sea, podemos repetir estos mismos puntos. Si el problema no fuera QUBO como tal, hay otros casos donde se puede aplicar el mismo contexto como tal, mejor dicho, el mismo método, ¿sí? En otros contextos. Bien, este trabajo fue realizado en el contexto de este proyecto Quorum, que es un proyecto que pretende justamente unificar visiones que hay repartidas muchas veces entre, no sé, la academia, la industria o el gobierno, ¿sí? O la administración pública, no sé cómo decirlo. Y justamente acá en Quorum, que es el nombre del proyecto como tal, financiado por el CEDET, y ahí pueden ver los organismos que están respaldando esto. Y aquí abajo podemos ver las entidades que están en este proyecto, ¿sí? Si buscan cada una de estas entidades van a encontrar que hay empresas, startups, empresas más grandes, empresas más recientes. Van a encontrar administración pública, van a encontrar centros tecnológicos, que en España hacen también de puente muchas veces entre lo que se hace en investigación básica en la academia y lo que en la industria se requiere, ¿no? para ser implementado. Bien, sin más, los dejo acá con también un link de contacto por si me quisieran preguntar alguna cuestión, dado que justamente está siendo grabada la sesión de hoy, va a quedar este link y además como fue grabada, esta misma presentación fue grabada, no solamente está siendo grabada ahora para ustedes, sino fue grabada por mí antes. eh, Justamente no voy a poder contestar en el momento estas preguntas, pero pueden dejarlas escritas o bien LinkedIn me pueden escribir a mí sin problema o en el Discord, digamos, del Forfest también pueden escribir por ahí sin problema para alguna duda o alguna pregunta que tengan con respecto a esta presentación. Así que sin más, muchísimas gracias. Los dejo con el cierre, digamos, de la resolución de los problemas QUBO directamente ahí. Muchísimas gracias por escucharme y a su disposición para lo que necesiten.
All right, wonderful. That was Mariano Caruso. Great in-depth presentation of QUBO and I mean, a wonderful, wonderful way to explain it. I apologize for those that might have been having a hard time with the closed captions. I was following along and it seemed like it was doing a pretty okay job. So with that, I am going to just remind everyone about the hackathons due today, the quizzes due this weekend. The prizes are pretty awesome, and we will be taking submissions for the humanitarian challenge till midnight today, and then for the I think I said Friday for the what's that called? The radar, the battleship radar. I'm sorry, I'm lost for words. But yes, so we are going to have those results on Friday, and so the date is on the Discord channel. Let's just make sure that you send it beforehand. If you're having a hard time and you really are trying and you're running into issues, ask questions. We won't solve it for you, but we will definitely give you some tips. I also have a notebook that I said I would share for those of you that are really attempting it and just need a little bit of a push. Happy to do that. But let us know how you're doing in the Discord channel, and we are happy to support you. The goal is to help you understand how to do it, to remember the concepts of angle rotation, the C knots, and it's just it's comprised of quantum registers, classical registers, C knots, rotation angles, and measurements. So the complexity lies in the making sure that the qubits are entangled properly, and so you can do that to achieve the result or improve the result of what we shared on the video for Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Very well. So I am going to stop the recording. Thank you for being part of this month-long journey with us. Again, we are humbled for everything you have done. I am going to share more metrics, who is from, just kind of understanding how many people we have from different parts, different knowledge, and just know that for each person, the takeaway here is very personal, very much at your level, and you can make the most of it. You can come back, reuse this to pass those certifications. Our community is going strong on Discord. We also have a lot of little events virtually, and the objective is for us to do interdisciplinary research. Please share research, talk about opportunities. Geopolitical situations right now are what they are, but science is not, with borders, right? We just have to remember that we make the world what we wish to see. And so I hope that message comes across. And even though some of the competitions are for certain citizenships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, not everything is like that. And make sure that you publish, ask for help, get patents, reach out to people and just say, hey, can I please be involved in this? Some of the speakers, and I won't mention who, some of the international speakers sent me a message, sent me a proposal, and said, we may have missed when the openings were. Can I please present this? And it was fantastic. But they reached out and they asked. So put yourself out there, and I have no doubt that you're going to be amazing. And if you need support, that is what we're here for as a community. So thank you for the privilege of your time and attention, your expertise, and I'm going to stop the recording and announce the winners on Friday. So stay tuned. You are welcome to join live if you want to, clap and say, yay, who's winning? But that is going to be Friday for whomever wants to come. And if not, we're just going to share the recording.